Hi everyone, this is Maddie Calzon with my first video on my YouTube channel. As you can see, this first slide is sort of an overview of the concepts we will be covering within this particular video, and I will be doing this for all my other videos as well. The domain for this video is Operations in Algebraic Thinking. The cluster number is 1, and it is Write and Interpret Numerical Expressions. And the particular concepts we will be covering is that we will use parentheses, brackets, or braces in numerical expressions and evaluate expressions with the symbols. Also, we will write simple expressions that record calculations with numbers and interpret numerical expressions without evaluating them. For our first concept we'll be covering today is order of operations. The best way to remember the order of these operations is using the acronym PEMDAS, which is parentheses, first, exponents, multiplication, division, and addition, as well as subtraction. Now, as you can see with the diagrams to the right, multiplication and division go together as well as addition and subtraction. So the order would go parentheses, then exponents, then whichever one comes first, starting left to right with multiplication and division, as well as with addition and subtraction. This will become more clear when we do examples on the next page, so let's get to it. Okay, so here we have some example problems. So what I like to do before I start this kind of problem is I like to write down my acronym on a piece of my paper so I can keep my work in order and I can remember what steps I have to take. Okay, so my first one is parentheses. I look at my equation. I do have parentheses, so what I want to do is I want to get rid of those parentheses. So I'll do 4 plus 9 first. So we have, I meant 4 plus 5 first. So 4 plus 5 is 9. We have that. And then we bring all the other stuff down with it so we can keep our work nice and neat. And we'll remember where we are. Okay, so now that we got our parentheses out of the way, check, we want to see what else we have. So we have exponents. We see an exponent right here, so that's our next thing to do. So we have 2 to the second, which is 2 times 2, which is 4. So we write the 4. We bring down everything else. And by the way, these little stars here, this means multiplication. It's easier to write that when we type. Okay, so now that we got the exponents out of the way, I don't see any more, so we can cross that out. Now we have multiplication. We have a couple multiplication, but they're in different order. So which one do we do first? Just like in the previous slide, it talked about going left to right. So I remember it as when we read anything, you read left to right. So that's what we're going to do for this. So we see multiplication, no division, so we multiply whichever comes first from left to right. So what comes first is 9 times 7. So 9 times 7 is 63. Write everything below with it. Okay, and now we have that out of the way. What's next? We have multiplication still. So we do 8 times 4, which is 32, plus the 63. And so now we have our multiplication out of the way. Okay, cross that off. Now we have the last step, which is addition slash subtraction. Now we look at it left to right, but since we don't have subtraction, we don't have to worry about that. All we have is addition left. So we do 63 plus 32, which is 95. And that is our final answer. And so now we're going to do some more practice, and I'm going to let you pause the video, and you are going to try to work this out yourself, and then I'll go through it with you to check your work. Okay, so everyone pause the video and pull out a sheet of paper and work this out. hopefully everyone has had time to work this out, and now we're going to go over it together. So we'll first start with the expression on our left. We have the little hint up here, PEMDAS. I'm going to write it in between the two examples, just so we can keep everything there. Okay, so we first start with parentheses. We see the parentheses, so we have to do everything inside those parentheses. Now we have multiplication and an exponent in this parentheses. Just like with all the other equations, PEMDAS applies within the parentheses. So the first thing we would do would be the exponent. So we have 6 to the second, which is 36, because 6 times 6, multiplied by 5. So to get rid of that, we do 36 times 5, which is a big number, which is 180. Okay, and then we take all this and bring it down. So minus 10 plus 40. Okay, so we got rid of the parentheses. Now we look at exponents. Well, we don't have any exponents. That was taken care of within the parentheses, so we can get rid of that. Multiplication, don't have any of that, and don't have division either, so that's easy. Cross those off. We got rid of that within the parentheses. So now all we have is addition and subtraction. Same rules apply with the multiplication and division. You go left to right as if you were reading. So the first thing that comes up is 180 minus 10, which would be 170. Bring down the 40. So this would be 210 as the final answer. So we can cross out the last two of this. Okay, and if you'll notice for the second example, it's the same equation with the brackets in different places. I did this to show you how these brackets are so important, because moving these brackets will change the answer. So that's why using the order of operations is very important when doing these math problems. Okay, so for the next one, we start with parentheses, just like with our PEMDAS. So 6 squared minus 10. So exponents is first, so it's 36 minus 10, which is 26. So we copy down the rest of our problem down, bring it down. So 5 times 26 plus 40. Okay, so we have our parentheses out of the way, and we don't have any more exponents. Got rid of those with the parentheses. So now we have to look at multiplication / division, which we can see there's multiplication involved. So we do 26 times 5, which is 130, plus 40, bring that down. So there's no more multiplication, no more division. There is addition, no more subtraction. So we add 130 plus 40, which gets you 170. Now, as you can see, these were all the same questions, but there's two different answers. That's why it's so important to be aware of these brackets, because the brackets, just like all the other operations, any operation out of step can give you completely different answers. So that's why we got to be really careful to use PEMDAS to get these answers. So for our second concept today, we will be writing simple expressions as well as evaluating them. So for our first example on the left, it says add 8 and 7, then multiply by 2. So what we'll do first is we'll add 8 plus 7, and then notice how it says then multiply by 2. So the addition of 8 and 7 is first, then comes the multiplication of 2, which is second. But as we all know from the previous lesson, is PEMDAS states that addition and subtraction should be after multiplication. Well, that's when the usage of our handy-dandy parentheses comes in. It wants us to recognize in this lesson that parentheses are important, and that when you see a word problem like this, you need to bracket these like this, and recognize then you do multiply by 2. So it's 8 plus 7 times 2, and with the usage of these parentheses, we can see that the addition will become first now due to the parentheses, then the multiplication will become second. And now we look over to the right. So it says 3 times 50 plus 100. So I've already done the math, and the answer is 450. And what it wants us to recognize is that 450 is 3 times the sum of this number. And that's basically all it is. It's really basic. It just wants to reiterate this concept that the parentheses are, making this first, and that the sum of this is 3 times the amount. So 3 times this is 3 times the sum of 50 plus 100. So it would be, if you go down here, it would be 3 times 150 is what it wants us to realize. Hopefully we've paused the video now at this time and do some more problems, which are here. So go ahead and pause it, get a piece of paper out, and do these problems, and then we'll go over it together. So hopefully you've gotten all that down. So let's do it together. See how we did. So first problem on the top left says subtract 5 from 20 and then add 10. So what we want to do is subtract 5 from 20, so 20 minus 5, parentheses, because that's what we want to do first, then add 10, plus 10. So 20 minus 5, which is the first due to PEMDAS, write that down there, is 15 plus 10 gets us 25. So that's the answer for the first example. Then we go down to our second example, which says to multiply 2 and 6, then divide by 3. So we'll put this in brackets, and then we'll divide by 3. So we have 2 times 6, which is 12, divided by 3, which is 4. So that's the answer for the second example. Going over to our last example, it says divide 5 into 10, so 10 divided by 5, then subtract 2. We want to put the brackets around what we want to do first, as we know from PEMDAS. So 10 divided by 5 is 2, minus 2 gets us 0. So that's all there is to it for these examples. Hopefully we all did well. And now we're going to go into our overview. So the overview is going to be incorporated to all my videos, and it's basically just going to go over the basic concepts we learned within the video. So as you can see from our first concept, order of operations with PEMDAS, which is parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Then with our second concept on the right, we have the add 8 and 7, then multiply 2. So we learned how to use the brackets and parentheses that we learned in the previous concept. And we also learned sort of the conceptual aspect of the fact that the answer to this, which is 450, so the sum of this times 3 is 450. So that's all there is to it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for watching.